Fred, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me, and awesome work on everyone listening to this. They just found the most amazing podcast.
Thanks, Fred. Mate, from what I can tell, you've had a really interesting and diverse journey as an entrepreneur. Tell us a bit about how you got started.
Well, I was, I was a hardcore computer gamer, bit of a university rebel, and I was installing computers into people's houses, and I started networking computers, and I started building websites. And then someone wanted me to build them their site, and I got into that. And once they built the site, but they needed, I was like, what else can I, sell to this customer? And they said, what else do you need? So I called up all these customers, and one of them said, there's this website called Go Google. And I was like, Go Google, not heard of it. And they're like, yeah, anyway, it's like the yellow pages, but can you get us to the top of that? I said, all right, I'll figure it out. And that was the journey, really into internet marketing. And I think internet marketing has been a great journey for me. Obviously, we built the agency and sold that. But, I think it's really about being curious. I've always been very curious. Always, when I was a kid, I just climbed trees and rode bikes, and skateboards and stuff. I don't know. I swam in the pool, but I was very curious about exploring my environment and always trying new things. And then I carried that through. That's what I think, enables me to be creative, and creation is what I'm all about with enterprising and being an entrepreneur. I think I'm much better at the creative stuff and the new stuff, but that's really where I started.
Yeah, awesome. And I think for a lot of people looking from the outside in, they see you probably in the press, the media, see the success of a company like Finder.com, and it's easy to make this assumption that it all happens very quickly and somewhat sort of easily. Tell us a little bit about some of your background. I mean, have you been in some other ventures that obviously haven't achieved the same sort of success?
I think the first business was a really tough business. Frank and I spent a good, I'd say 4 years living on spaghetti, and, we didn't have toilet paper. We didn't have a toilet seat actually in our house. We used to live together, and we ran it like an Airbnb. This was grinding it out. We used to use, I tell you what, I strongly suggest the TV Guide is not the best toilet paper replacement. Never quite recovered from that.
A bit harsh.
Yeah, you want to go, the Daily Telly is not so bad. But, I think there's a lot of struggle, a lot of mistakes, and all of those mistakes were really that investment we made in the early days, right? There's huge amounts of sweat equity and capital that have gone into what makes Finder today. We started working together in 2003. That's like a long time ago. And just the number of lessons you learn from 18 years of enterprising, you stack them all together. That's the investment. It's really hard to see because it's in the decisions that we make, because we know, but other people may not know those decisions. But the only reason we know them is because we've made the investments in order to try them and experiment. And we've got, I've got a solid, good, chest of success, but I've got an even more impressive couple of football fields of failures. They're they're amazing, man. There's some serious contraptions there, and, some real harebrained ideas but they taught me everything, that I really have, I continue to use and employ today.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how much of Freestyle Media, your first company, how much of that kind of do you think really fed into the success of what Finder is today?
It's massive. It made us, it's an agency, right? Agencies don't have really that many scalable things to sell. They're mainly service businesses. And so what you do is you're selling your time. And essentially, by selling your time, you have to make an arbitrage on that, and that was really the only thing we knew how to do. And that was a grinding, grueling business. It taught us, how to collect money, free cash flow, how to, find the right crew, and all those just the most brutal lessons you could ever possibly learn at such a young age. The actual biggest challenge was I never actually worked for another company, so I learned it all even harder. And we didn't take any capital in, so it was all our money. And so we basically had to trade off free cash flow. And that is capital, right? But it's even more brutal, right? So you live and die by your decisions when you're so inexperienced. And then I just don't forget those ones, because they cut so deep and so hard that you just don't forget.
Yeah, well, surely that's got to give you some sort of an edge though, right? I mean, I think it's easy when you work in a large corporate or something, it's not your money, it's someone else's money, right? I mean, if you really kind of screw up, okay, you might lose your job, but really you're not going to lose your home, right? So, I just sort of imagine that having done it yourself, bootstrapped it, done it with your own money, struggled through that, surely that's got to give you some kind of an edge in the way you look at your business and the way you make decisions.
Yeah, I think... what it comes down to is that struggle and pushing through that and figuring that out. That is essentially, being an entrepreneur. That is enterprising. That's what it actually comes down to. And you risk capital. So, and when I talk about capital, I mean time, and money is one thing, but motivation is another. Health is another. I got really quite unfit and unwell for quite a period of time. And you trade that in order to potentially get an upside, only potentially.
Yeah.
And you need to be very comfortable and aware and conscious that that's only a potential. Now, if you focus on it and you're clear with your intention and your purpose, then I believe that with enough effort, that potential can turn into great success. And that's what I think really, I think we're just a really brutal set of grinding people who just don't give up and keep finding and being creative and innovate our way out of problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Take me back to Freestyle Media again. I mean, was this the first business that you'd actually sold?
Yeah, it was.
And what was that process like?
Well,
actually, dealing with buyers and...
We just went, we spoke to a bunch of buyers and we explained the business, we presented it to them, what it does. And it was a pretty small business, For me, it was the entire earth, like it was the whole thing.
Yep.
But for everyone else, they were like, what are we talking here? And for them, it was almost a mild rounding error. For me, it was a big deal, right? Because I've never seen that much money before. And so, I think we just went and sold it ourselves. We didn't have an advisory. We didn't know. We just made it up. We just went, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we want to sell. And then, someone made us an offer and we were like, that's a pretty good offer. We had a counter offer and then we said yes. And then we went through a due diligence process, got all the accounts through the accounts. It wasn't a massive business, so it's not super complicated. Finders are, you're talking 4 different currencies, 6 different currencies. You're talking multiple legal jurisdictions, a very big corporate structure, multiple different accounting standards, all sort of kind of wrapped into one. And a lot more complexity and risk, I guess, in that. This was just, for me, it was a big deal, but it was a relatively seamless. It wasn't that we actually negotiated with a law firm just to have we only paid them $2,500 to read through the actual document in the end of the day. Because we didn't have any money. We had no money. And so we were like, well, give us the best. They're like, we'll read through it, find any red flags. We were like, done. It was like 150 pages. They flagged a few things, and then we were like, okay. And then we signed it. I don't think I even read the whole thing. It was just too much. But it was just, it was a bit of that back then.
Yeah, I can imagine. I wonder, did that experience of selling that business, did that shape your outlook a little bit in terms of your next venture? Like, did you start the next venture and Finder thinking that we're going to build something to eventually sell it?
Actually, when we started, I didn't really think we were going to sell it. I just thought we were going to build a great business because it was it's just a really good business. It's a good free cash flow company. It's a profitable company. It makes, it's a good business. I think that's what we made in this time. And I think that's what I was really setting out to do, is to make something which ticked along by itself and it was scalable. I don't know if we had an exit in mind. We were just like, hey, this is a good business. Let's get into this.
Yeah. And so at what point, I mean, obviously you must have, you had all this experience with the internet and, getting exposure and SEO and all this sort of stuff. So clearly, that's the nexus, for the idea of Finder. But was there a sort of point in your timeline when you went, wow, this idea this is it. This is really a big one. This is different from other ideas we've had?
Yeah, I think, I remember, I was coding the site and I was, doing SEO on it and writing content, calling up partners and stuff like that. And what I remember was it when it started to make more money than we were, I think it started getting like really exponentially ratcheting up. And that and it was making significant, I remember we crossed 25 grand in a month, and we had myself and I had a part-time guy who worked with me. And that, probably came from 12 grand a month before, 5 grand a month before that. Like, it was serious ramp up. And I think we just, took that and went, okay, let's scale that. Let's really, and I went and found a whole, obviously a group of individuals, and started to scale it and started to think this could be a real thing. And every single thing we did, we added to it. The more energy we put in, the more it just grew. It was just like one of those things, flywheels, when you push it and it goes faster, and you put more energy in and it keeps going faster. And it's really like that.
Yeah, brilliant. And what would you say have been some of the biggest challenges you've faced in building Finder?
Oh, I think we had obviously a massive Google penalty. That was not the best. Yeah. Google's always one you got to wrangle with, and I think we've done well to recover from that. I think I've lost my.
Can you talk us through that a little bit, or is that
we lost about 80% of our traffic overnight. We lost it for about 3 months. So, we kind of maybe contravened the best practices, you might say, of what Google wanted. And then we recovered from that. Yep. We went and fixed it all. And that took a lot of work. 3 months of all. I think it was 12 of us all, just focused on that. And you're not building the business then. You're trying to recover it, and that's not the most fun time. It was a very dark time, actually. And I think I replacing myself. So there was one point in time where in finding myself again and what I was contributing to the company, because there's a lot of roles that are I don't do, but there's a lot of people that do them, and a lot of I remember this point where I just stopped going to leadership meetings. And it didn't really matter. But that's just the nature of myself. I don't know if that's my best place every day. From time to time it is. It's good. But I think that, the operation of the organization and its cadence is good. I think the strategic creation, I think that's where I figured out is I'm much better at. And in that moment, I went and flew over to the US and started the US business over there.
Yeah, great. So how long, I mean, that I guess, extricating yourself from the day-to-day, is one of the great challenges I think that most business owners out there face. Certainly it has a massive impact on value when they think about exiting and retiring or moving on. How long would you say it sort of took you to get to that point where you just sort of said, hey, the business just doesn't need me doing this anymore?
I'd say maybe 5 or 6 years. That's when I was, when just completely not really needed. It could have gone faster.
Was there something in the business that told you that? Yeah, was it a revenue thing? Was it a staffing thing? How did you know? Well, that's a great sign. So there you go, listeners.
Yeah, it was just very nice conversations, and those nice conversations led to the point where it was clear that maybe other people should report to those. And I was in agreement, and actually, it was my goal as well. It was my goal to extricate myself. But then then you go and build a bigger business, and then there's lots of creation and lots of new things, and that's really where I've moved to now. I run Finder Ventures, and we just create new things continuously inventing and innovating, the most bleeding edge, cutting edge stuff, and we're just all around the world. It's lots of fun.
Yeah, cool. And so what are some of the latest things you've been looking at? I mean, we've obviously read and seen a bit about the Finder app, and, obviously you've been doing Hive and HiveEx and a few other different things. So what are some of the bigger things you're looking at the moment?
Crypto, I'm big on crypto, pretty big. like I mentioned, we just launched buying and selling Bitcoin and Ethereum in the Finder app. So it takes 3 minutes to onboard, deposit, and buy or sell. It's pretty cool. It's very innovative in that sense. We've been playing with account aggregation. We just got approved for open banking in Australia. We're the first fintech, one of the first fintechs to do that, particularly a first comparison site at least. I think really just, playing around with that kind of technology, playing around with what's, future and what's possible. That's been really exciting. I'm really big into decentralized finance right now. In the crypto space, massively. I really, really love that.
So talk us through for the layman out there who'd be wondering what that means. What in simple terms does that?
It means you earn interest on your crypto. So basically, everyone's one of the biggest complaints people have, and they talk about and people who are not into Bitcoin, they go through all the arguments, and I've heard them all, and like I don't almost if you're not into it yet, then I don't have time anymore to explain it. So one of the big critics is, one of the criticisms is, you can't get anything. Well, that's not true. You can get a yield on your Bitcoin. You stake your Bitcoin, in other words, you deposit it in traditional finance terms, then that essentially can earn you a yield, from 2 to 4% interest, which is kind of cool, right? Considering most banks are paying between 0.5 and 1.1% interest, it's quite compelling.
Yep.
And I think that's just the beginning, right? So decentralized finance has now created decentralized exchanges, decentralized market making. There's so many different elements of decentralized finance that I absolutely love. I just love it. I don't know why. It's just so right in my wheelhouse, because I think it's technology, finance, and marketing wrapped up into one. And I think, and money's kind of cool as well.
Yeah, well, money's cool as to what it can do, for sure. And decentralized, I guess, in the sense that it's no longer controlled by just one party or government, right? I mean, it's a market-based driven commodity.
Exactly
fundamentally, right? Yeah.
It's the people's money.
Yeah, interesting. And yeah, absolutely. It's democratized, right? So, and so we're seeing, I think it was Chile this week or last week announced that they're sort of looking at recognizing Bitcoin as official currency. You think we'll see more of that trend happening?
Passed the law, so you can actually read and translate that. And so shop owners must accept Bitcoin now in that country. That's kind of a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of the challenges are, if you're living in Australia, the US, the UK, or, in Europe, where there's a stable currency. And stable currency is an interesting word right now, given the inflation and how it's picking up. But you take this stable currency, and what I think is interesting is when you translate, the fundamentals of that to a country where it's not stable. What is your alternative? If you're experiencing 50% inflation, like in Argentina right now, and you go and make your wages, you get $1,000, and at the end of the week, it's worth 500. That causes a problem, and so you need a mechanism to exit that, and cryptocurrencies are one of those channels that provide that. One of the things that's happening right now in Venezuela is police and army. And the army are actually seizing Bitcoin miners. So what's happened is during COVID, electricity prices have gone to almost zero. And so it's basically free electricity. But the problem so Bitcoin miners are starting up, right? The currency is inflating away. It's not worth anything. People are carrying, stacks and stacks of money worth, cents in the dollar. And so they're running Bitcoin miners, earning Bitcoin, and then translating that, changing it back into fiat with whatever they need. But the police and the army are basically ruled it out as illegal, and it just gives you an idea, right? Of what is the use case of this? Well, if you want to exit the system, where it is not feasible to deal in the currency that is I guess forced upon you, then this is a way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, and just for those listening, a fiat currency is just those basically operated by the government of a country. So I guess, no doubt in this, what you're saying before is that a lot of people talk about the risks of cryptocurrencies and things like that. But essentially what you're saying here is that it's actually de-risking things for transactions, I guess, and even lifestyles for many people in the world whose traditional currency is perhaps
100%.
Not as stable and reliable.
It's tough to see that and those use cases. One simple thing is, we allow our staff to take 25% of their wages in Bitcoin. And that's because that's what they believe in, and that's absolutely fine by us. Yeah, that's interesting. And I imagine we'll see more of that as a trend going forward. It's obviously Tesla and all sorts of people are in the press talking about this sort of stuff as well. So it's clearly the early part of a very large trend. Out of interest, I noted you were quoted in the AFR a while ago about certainly some competitors had listed on the exchange. Just coming back to Finder here, but. And perhaps had run into some other issues. And I guess you were quoted in there saying that you were keen to sort of keep Finder in private hands for a while and keep focusing on growth. That was a couple of years ago. Has that outlook changed for you at the moment? I mean, where do you see the growth happening for Finder? I think we are, in a phase of continuing to innovate and deliver what the customer wants. And, what the customer wants is faster, more seamless, ways to save money. And now what we're starting to do as well is to offer ways people can invest their money. And you can do that in the Finder app today already. And I think there's a massive runway of expansion and innovation that we are engaging in, and we're going to continue to do. And I think at its core, we keep rolling out our service around the world. So there's massive, continue to roll out our geographic expansion. US, UK, Canada businesses are big. We obviously market heavily into Hong Kong, Singapore. We just acquired GoBear in Southeast Asia, which is a comparison service there. And we'll just continue to do that because I think it's needed, right? We want to serve more people around the world.
Yeah. And is listing on the horizon at all?
It's an interesting idea, and it's something which we've had a lot of quite intense proposals around of recent. I'm still very focused on the core, and I do think there's probably something we'll do that we have been working on some plans around this, and I think it's probably I think it's a good time for us. I think we've really got an incredible opportunity where we are, and I think the founders are very young and they're very ambitious still. So it's just really just the beginning, I think. It's still day one.
Yeah. No, that's very exciting. Cognizant of time here, Fred, but, for all the listeners out there and all these business owners, entrepreneurs trying to make their way in the world, is there one sort of piece of advice that you give to your fellow entrepreneurs?
I just finished writing a book, actually. It's got 10 of my top principles that I actually, use. I didn't write a book on how to make money. I didn't write a book on, how to lose weight. I didn't write a book on, rules, because I break all the rules. And this book's about the principles and ideas that I use, and I think they're eternal, and I think they can really help business owners in what they do. I think so. One part of that, I think, is at its absolute core, the key thing that's very difficult as an entrepreneur in the beginning, if you're very enterprising, is to focus on one thing and make that one thing your competitive edge, and focus on that capital allocation of your time, your team's time, and go all in 80% on that. That is really hard, and it's high risk, and you need to work through that. But that thinking and that mindset is, I think, absolutely essential. I think CEOs or founders have two key responsibilities. One is to operate the business, and the second one is to allocate capital and time. And one of the big things in that is their actual allocation of time and capital. So their actual time is capital.
No, that's fantastic. The book sounds amazing. And,
and
when will it be available?
My website,
how do people find it?
Schebesta.com, and there's some links there to Amazon and Booktopia, and you can pre-order it. And that's coming out, I think, at the end of July.
Awesome. Well, you've heard it there, guys. So make sure you get out there and order the book and pre-order it so you get your copy nice and early. Fred, is there any other way that people can follow you, follow your story, connect with you? What's the best way for people to do that?
So come and join me there, and I have a little group where I share my ideas called the Disruptors Club. And I do a little bit of Instagram, but I don't know if I'm the most Instagrammable. I'd try. But definitely, my LinkedIn is probably if you want to immerse yourself in what I have to say, come on, join me there.
Fabulous. Well, you've heard it there, guys. So jump onto LinkedIn, follow Fred's profile, and join his group if you can. If you're looking for more of these tips and just following entrepreneurs who've actually been there and done it. And I think that's the big difference is, the world needs more implementers and perhaps less educators. So you've heard it right there.
Thanks very much.
Fred, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.